Okay.
All right, everybody, welcome to For Fantasy's Sake. This is Points in the Paint. I am Andrew. This is my partner Sam.
Hey.
We are we're rolling through the NBA season. We're a little past the James Harden, KD, and Kyrie show. They're starting to flow and starting to gel a little bit. What else is kind of going on in the NBA that you've noticed?
So besides, Brooklyn's their new big three, kind of along the line. I mean, the same thing. You're kind of looking at the Lakers, and they're at the top of the West. I mean, and they're the defending champions, so obviously, all eyes are always going to be on them. I've been watching a lot of Golden State. Kind of seeing, how they're, coming together. Steph coming back. Wiseman, Draymond. And then Oubre and Wiggins. So I've been watching a lot of them. And other teams in the West, like the Clippers, how the Clippers are going to come back this year. The Clippers are kind of humming along. Utah's been kind of a nice surprise. I think they're like second. They might be first in the West now after the Lakers lost yesterday, but the Utah's like a nice, pleasant surprise in the West. And then in the Eastern Conference, there's just so much besides Brooklyn, Philadelphia's look good. Boston hasn't been as good as I thought they'd be. Miami's been kind of a disappointment. I know, but I mean, they made that late run, so I think Miami will probably, sneak into it, later this season. And then kind of just looking at all these other teams in the East, like, the Bulls. I see that my baby Bulls are starting to grow up a little bit. We have string together some wins. And yeah, there's kind of a lot of other little storylines with each of their other teams, and whether they're rebuilding or whatnot. So.
I watched the Magic and Kings game yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't decide whether the Kings looked that good or if the Magic were that bad. And every time I see, I feel sorry for Vucevic. And I
For who? I didn't hear the name.
Vucevic.
Vucevic. Oh yeah.
And I feel bad for him because he's a great player. And I think that before his career is over, he deserves to win a championship. And he's not going to do it on Magic. He's not. And I don't know what piece they're missing defense. They're missing defense, that defensive piece. But at the same token, you can't be that. I just don't understand how they're that bad.
Every year I always think it's going to be Sacramento's year to make the playoffs because they've had so much young talent come through. Like De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield. I mean, they had Bogdanovich, Harrison Barnes, Marvin Bagley, and every year they're literally on a cusp. Remember last year in the bubble, they were one of the teams that were playing in, and they missed out. I think even the year before that. And I think it's going to be along the lines of the same thing this year. It's like Sacramento's just stuck. They're kind of like the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're just stuck, where they're at, and they can keep getting these high draft, these top 10, lottery picks, and they never seem to go anywhere. So I like Luke Walton as their coach. I mean, I love De'Aaron Fox. I love some of the other players they have there, but I don't know if it's management or what, but just Sacramento has just not been,
I've been waiting. So when I was little, I started getting into basketball, and the Sacramento Kings were easily in my top 5 because I watched Chris Webber, I watched Mike Bibby, I watched Vlade Divac, and it was that team was so insane, and it still blows my mind that game. They went to their conference finals, and then they lose against the Lakers when Robert Horry hits that game-winning 3. And I feel like that they've never really recovered from that. Because personally, that's the last time I've recognized them in the playoffs and took them as a serious contender.
If I can remember, I think 2004 when KG won MVP, that was the year they lost to the Timberwolves in the second round of the playoffs, and and I remember correctly, they had a shooter, Anthony Peeler. I don't know if you remember correctly, where he punched Kevin Garnett in that game 6 or whatever, and he was their best 3-point shooter percentage wise. So he gets suspended for the next game, and then they lose by 3 points in that next game. And I remember that was like a big thing. Like, they lost by 3 points and all. Granted, if this guy played, who knows what would have happened. But to that 2014, I think it was still the same. It was Bibby, Christie, I think Stojakovic. I think it was still their core body and all of them, and that was like their last go around. I think Chris Webber got traded to Detroit shortly after. I remember yeah, it's just, man, that's been like, what, that's almost 20 years now. It's like, 15, 16 years, and they just like kind of just stuck there. I think they made the playoffs once or twice after that, and then first round exit. I think they made it in 2006, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they had Ron Artest at that time. They traded, for Indiana. They traded Page to Indiana for Artest, but they're just like bottom feeders. I mean, I feel like and then there's just some teams or some franchises you look at and you just say, you know what, I just don't see that franchise going anywhere unless they do a major shakeup. And I think that's Sacramento as well. Maybe they need to like move cities or something.
I don't know what it is. I think they just need to be. I think they've got a solid base right now with De'Aaron Fox, Michael Badgley, and Harrison Barnes. Surprisingly enough, because Harrison Barnes is a guy that he was with Golden State, and he was kind of a role guy, and I think he kind of got too big of a head and left, and felt like he could be a bigger star than he. I think he could fill bigger shoes than he actually could.
He actually didn't leave. They let him walk because they got Durant.
Because he went to Dallas.
Because remember, Golden State pulled his tender when they realized they could get Durant. Because I think he would have stayed, and he fit in perfectly in Golden State as a third option behind Curry and Clay. And I think that was the year they lost to the Cavs too. So Golden State was like, you know what? If we have a chance to get Durant, we want to win again. Like, we'll let Harrison walk in, which I don't blame them. And then Dallas offered him the max or whatever at the time and whatnot. But I actually liked them in Golden State. So, and I think Golden State drafted him too. So it's unfortunate to see him leave. But he's in a good situation in Sacramento, but they just got to get over that hump. I don't know what it's going to take, but yeah.
You know who else I like in the West who's actually playing really well is the Rockets. They are gelling with John Wall, with Victor Oladipo, and I didn't think that those two would really work all that well together, but the flow there is actually really nice. And Christian Wood, he's been playing very, very well as well.
I actually have an article that I'm working on, and it's talking about some of the free agents and how they're impacting their team. Pretty much how they're impacting their team in a positive manner. And Christian Wood is one of them. And I think an article like he's like almost doubled his points per game from last season to this season. He's averaged like 23 points this season, but last season he averaged like 13.5 for Detroit. And all of his numbers across the board are just that much better. And I kept seeing that guy's name last year, but I didn't, know who he was until like really this year. And I watched him play. And he's only going to continue to get better. And Houston actually has a team now. I love John Wall. I've always loved John Wall. He's obviously battled some injuries in the past, but if he can get back to even 75% or 85% of what he is, he's still a really good player because he's, he passes. He's a willing passer. The same thing with Boogie. Boogie, obviously all those leg injuries. He's, still relatively young. But then Christian Wood, Victor Oladipo. You got Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Macklemore. You got Devon House. You have a team now, and not like with Houston before, where that team was just really so reliant on James Harden. So there's other opportunities. They're going to be a team that probably shares the ball a lot. You'll probably see Oladipo and Wall and Cousins and Wood all average like double figures, and but they can definitely. Can they make the playoffs in the West? They could probably be one of the bottom teams, or they could probably make the play-ins. One of the bottom teams fighting for that last spot, but. They got a good team, and I think it's just going to come down to their health. The health of their star players and whatnot. But do love me some John Wall, man.
So I don't know if you're paying attention to the score right now, but it's Portland and Houston right now. Mm-hmm. Houston up by 3. Portland,
Oh.
104-101.
Mm-hmm.
2.1 seconds left in the game. Blazers just took a full timeout after Gordon sinks 2 free throws after a foul. So you know that the ball is going to Dame. You know that he's putting up a 3, and his range for a 3 ball is absolutely nuts. I thought Steph Curry's was crazy, and Dame has just taken that to a whole nother level in my book. And where he's shooting them as a regular shot. Whereas Curry, it was almost not out of desperation, but just like, I'm just going to toss this up and see what happens. But Dame's shots, they're actual shots, and they always have a threat to go in. This game that's going to be the game to watch. And like I said, Houston, you got watch out for them because they're getting that footing, they're getting that chemistry, and I think that they have what it takes to make a playoff berth and surprise some teams. I don't know that they'll get to the conference finals. I don't know that they'll get to the finals themselves, but I think that they could have a shot at disrupting some teams and playing spoiler.
So I'm looking at the records now, and Houston's 12. In the Western Conference, they're 7-9, and the 8th seed is Memphis at 7-6. But I mean, Memphis still has like 5 games that they have like canceled, so that might come back to bite them, later on, especially when fatigue kicks in. But yeah, like I said, I can see Houston sneaking in because I mean, Phoenix is out of the picture right now, Dallas isn't in the picture right now, and I expected both of those teams to be in the playoffs this year. Sacramento, they're right below Houston, but maybe they can make a run. But Portland's actually been, Portland's 9-7 and they're in the playoffs now, but they've actually been kind of a disappointment to me so far this season. Like, they haven't been as good as advertised. Maybe they're kind of, still kind of waiting to, kind of turn it on, turn the Jets on. But if Houston can hold on and win this game, that'd be a big win for them, especially just their confidence. And I think they're on a 3-game winning streak. So if they win this game, this should be their 4th game. So
I did just see they won.
They won? Yeah, nice. So yeah, I think obviously once Harden was gone last week, now you can kind of focus on the guys that are actually in the locker room, and you move forward with those guys now because there's no more trade talk, no more trade rumors. Hey, we're in the trenches now. We know who our guys are, so let's just go out and battle and let's try to make the playoffs. So.
Yeah, well, in Portland's defense, they've lost Jusuf Nurkic too.
I forgot about that.
He's down on injury, and I think he's out for a couple more weeks at the least, if I'm remembering right. But in the same token, like you said, with the Harden leaving, you don't have that as a distraction anymore. You know that had to have been a constant distraction for them, not knowing whether – because how are you supposed to game plan if you don't know whether he's going to show up or not? You don't know if he's going to decide to play. At that point, it's next man up, but then he could easily come in and disrupt that and ruin the whole plan for the game. So you don't have that anymore. You can focus on, like you said, you're in the trenches now. You know who your guys are, and you can develop a game plan that is going to be, week in and week out. But another team I like Detroit. They have an awful record and they're a scrappy team, but I think if Jeremy Grant and Blake Griffin can pull it together, I think they can come back and make some noise. Personally, I don't think anybody's taken it away from Milwaukee. I think they're too good. They're going to be going to the conference finals, and I think anybody that goes up against them is gonna have a hard time knocking them out.
So 2 things. Jeremy Grant, another one of the free agents that I mentioned in my article. So yeah, I'm glad. And he's obviously, his numbers across the board have been better too ever since he's left Denver. And there's a reason why Denver hasn't been that good defensively since he's left, and why Detroit's better. I mean, they're 4-14, but Grant's a good bright spot for Detroit. I'm still waiting to see more from their rookie draft pick, their first rounder, Killian Hayes, the point guard, because the
Hmm.
Bulls were linked to him at 1.2, but his numbers haven't been that great. But I think he was a one and done. I think he's and he's pretty big, about 6'5", 6'6", so that's a pretty good size for your point guard. So yeah, Detroit's definitely building towards the future. They got a couple other pieces in there. Blake Griffin isn't the same player he used to be.
Yeah.
But I think at this point he'd be a really good player on a championship team where you come off the bench, play limited minutes and maybe a couple highlight slams, but he can still make some plays, stuff like that. I mean he's just been battling injuries. I don't know about Milwaukee. We've seen Giannis, and I've seen Milwaukee do this same thing like 2-3 years now, where they just race to this nice record in the regular season. Obviously, it's like a track meet. With Giannis, he's such a load, obviously, but in the playoffs, it's a different story. It's matchups, it's more half court offense. Things slow down in a sense. So you got to be able to execute in a half court offense. So I mean, I know Giannis is shooting more threes. But will he do that? Will he shoot those threes in the half court offense in the playoffs? Because they're probably gonna leave him open and all right, you're gonna beat us with three. So he's willing to take them like Ben Simmons. So I'm honestly, I don't even want to. I don't like the Lakers, Milwaukee, some of these other top tier teams. I don't even really judge them or really look much into their regular season performances. Like the other day, the Lakers played Philadelphia, and everybody's talking about that game. It's a statement win for Philadelphia, and I'm like, I'm not even judging the Lakers until they hit the playoffs. The same thing with like teams like Philly and Boston, because these teams have been around the block. They same core, same players. I mean, so like, if you win one game one day, you lose another one the next day. It's nothing. Let's get to the playoffs and let's see how they perform in the playoffs. At least for me, that's just how I look at it. Only teams I'm really paying attention to on a day-to-day basis are like teams like the Bulls because they're a young team and I want to see that growth. Like, are they learning to turn that corner? Are they learning to string together wins? Are they learning to close out games and stuff like that? But that's it. The Bulls are a young team. They're not a team like the Lakers or the Bucks who have championship aspirations. So
I don't know. Regular season, I think, is important.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that you didn't say it was important, but
Yeah.
I like watching teams in the regular season and being able to say, hey, these guys, they're building up momentum, and
Yeah.
we're early into the season, so I don't think any momentum that somebody, if they win 6 now, I don't think that they're gonna go undefeated all the way into the finals. That's unrealistic, and quite frankly, the only team that's even come close to something like that was Golden State a few years ago. But I mean, at the end of the season, I mean, right around just after the All-Star break, when teams start getting hot, that's when you really got to pay attention to them and see what they're doing. And a little bit of what I noticed, it's usually stuff that they've been doing all year, and for one reason or another, it's just starting to flow again, and it's starting to be better more consistently. Last year it was LeBron and AD just balling out every game, and just it was the LeBron and AD show. And then teams are so focused in on that. People like Kyle Kuzma, Danny Green, and Tavius Caldwell Pope, and they had another outside perimeter shooter. I'm drawing a blank, but those guys were able to take advantage of all of that and see a lot of success. I think you're going to see that this year with some teams, and I think that if the teams that are good play the way they should, i.e. Milwaukee, they should get to the finals. There's no reason why that they don't. However, it brings up the question, what happens if they don't? Is that now the legacy of never making a finals and just being Mr. Regular Season?
Possibly, maybe they try blowing up the core again, and maybe they look at trading like Middleton or like really blowing up the core and bringing in somebody else. Because I mean, at this point, maybe they look to get a guy like Bradley Beal. Like, hey, maybe we need like a dynamic outside shooter. Maybe let's make a move for Bradley Beal because he's not happy in Washington, and we know Giannis is. Giannis signed that extension, so we know he's going to be there for the foreseeable future. Let's bring in a guy like Bradley Beal, who's only 27, 28, and let's see it and spin the tires on that. But that's all you really can, do at this point, really. I think I like Drew Holiday as their point guard. Maybe they look for another point guard too. Maybe they try to get Rondo, as a backup, and So I mean, if you're Milwaukee and they lost in the second round last year, I mean they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals the year before that, correct? Yeah, to Toronto.
Yep.
It's got to be Eastern Conference Finals / NBA Finals or bust. You at least got to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But you could say the same thing about Boston. You could say the same thing about Philadelphia. Those three teams, like, hey, like we've gotten close. I think we got to get over the hump because last year Miami just wrecked everything and said no. It's hard. It's not really our time now, but hey, we're gonna do it. Like we're gonna run the table. So this year, I mean, who's gonna be the Miami team that's gonna make that run? Especially out the East. I mean, like who's gonna? We'll see. I mean, and you're right too. If as far as after post All-Star break, that's when you really want to start paying attention, see what the teams are doing, see like what their offense is doing, what they're adding to their offense and stuff like that. Obviously, I play basketball for fun, so I like I'll look at some of their offense. I'm like, all right, well, this offense they do a lot of back doors, they cut, they do a lot of high low action and whatnot. So like and seeing how some of their offense evolves, like like okay, they are able to do certain things in offense because they have certain players like Golden State, like they're so versatile offensively because they could run their offense through Curry or through Draymond, or they could even eventually run it through Wiseman, so. I mean, obviously the Lakers can run it through LeBron or AD, Philadelphia through Embiid or Simmons, so yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that if you're Milwaukee, you almost have to look at it as, hey, Giannis, he's a great player. Maybe he's not the guy. Maybe we made a mistake giving it. We didn't make a mistake giving him that money because they gave him the money because of the stats he puts up, the games he wins, and the opportunity to get him there. And I still think that the only reason that they lost in the playoffs last season was because he got hurt. I think a healthy Giannis against the playoff Miami team from last year. I think Milwaukee still takes it, and we have a completely different NBA Finals.
Yeah, that big Milwaukee got bust off by Miami that last year. I mean, yeah, Giannis got hurt, and it was just like, whoa, like like we're down and this and that. But like I said, like when Miami made that move to get Andre Iguodala, I just had me thinking Milwaukee, and I'm like, you know what, if they have enough perimeter players, and they add Jimmy Butler, I'm like, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Milwaukee. So when they beat Milwaukee, I'm like, I'm not surprised. I was surprised when they beat Boston. I was really surprised when Miami beat Boston, but I was not surprised when they beat Milwaukee because Milwaukee just doesn't have enough guys that can get thrown that can play make. They have a couple guys. Bledsoe's not really that good to me. That's why they got rid of him. Giannis is obviously good, and that Middleton can kind of do some things too, but they don't have enough guys that can play make. That's what they were even talking about, possibly getting Chris Paul or whatnot. So. Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting to see. I still think Giannis can be good. I mean he's trying. He works on his game. He's obviously taking the three. I think he can be that guy. You know what I'm saying? But he's got to keep growing and stuff like that. I want to see if he can add to his game in the low post because usually when he gets down low, I mean he's just quicker. Than most big men, and he just slams it. Like hey, can you get a hook shot? I mean I've never seen him do a hook shot. Can you do hook shots? Can you? Turnaround game like LeBron's. I see LeBron does his turnaround now. He's like 36 years old. He wasn't doing that before. But hey, Giannis, you're 20. Giannis 27, 26, 20. Yeah, 26. Can you add that turnaround? Can you add that to your game? So that way, if teams are, if people are trying to, they want to blitz you at the perimeter and force the ball at your hands, but just go down low. And then you could drop a double team. And then you can kick out. You could be effective at different parts on the court. If your jump shot's not falling, go down low, or something like that. Crash boards, set a screen for your teammate, just move or just keep moving. You as a player, you'll get the ball. You can maybe make a play for another teammate, but he can find ways to be effective, and I think that's like the next step in this game, like finding different ways to attack and stuff like that.
I agree. I think he would be a good post player, but at the same time, then you're losing out on the game that he's developing right now, which is that long range jumper. Because traditionally he's just been a guy that, hey, just drive the lane, dunk it.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna win games, and we're just gonna speed and brute force. That's how they're gonna do it.
He can do both. I mean, you see Embiid. Look at Embiid. Embiid take a couple threes a game, 2, 3 threes a game, and they'll hit him. And then Embiid still plays down low. Like he can totally do that. Giannis can. He can set a pick for Bledsoe, and he could pick and pop. If he wants to take a three, he could set a pick. He could dive to the basket, or he could just post up down low. I think he's so good that he can score from all those different points. He could just pick. All right, I'm gonna do this. All right, and kind of just react to, well, who's guarding me? If it's a big guarding me, let me say on the perimeter. I could drive past him. If it's a small, okay, I'm going down low. You know, I'm gonna draw the foul. You know, I'm gonna go to the free throw line. Like he can do all those things and be. I mean, if he learns to put all that together, there's no reason why Giannis can't average like 30 plus points like KD. Like seriously. Like I mean,
he should. Yeah, absolutely should.
2-3 threes a game is easy. I mean, going to the free throw line 8 to 10 times. I mean, like these are normal. I mean, he went to the free throw line, or maybe it was another. Yeah, it was in B. I'm sorry, but he can go to the free throw line like 4 to 6 times in a quarter.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's Philly's offense is they want to get the ball down low to Embiid and get those easy buckets. Which, why would you not want to do that? That's a great way to run your offense is to get the ball down low, you get a higher chance to score, and you get more better field goal percentage. But what I've noticed is that Giannis, and you can agree or disagree on this, but I think Giannis is having a hard time. I shouldn't say he's having a hard time, but he's having to adjust to a new role. Because last season, he was the acting point guard. Yeah. He was the guy taking the ball up the court. Now it's Jrue Holiday. Now he's having to be that guy that, okay, where can I position myself on the floor to get the ball and take an open shot, as opposed to last season where he was the guy dribbling the ball down the court and, all right, am I taking the shot, or where can we move the ball to where we can score? So I think it's that adjustment that he might be having a little bit of an issue with. And that's just my perspective on it. And feel free to build off that or agree or disagree.
I think him having a point guard is great. As far as taking pressure off him, I think he has to learn to play with a guy like a point guard. But I mean, I think once when Malcolm Brogdon left Milwaukee a couple of years ago, I feel like they just have not been the same. And that team with Malcolm Brogdon was like so dominant, and Brogdon was the point guard. But I feel like Giannis can do that. And I mean, Giannis, he's so talented, like Andrew. He could literally, have your point guard, your Jrue Holiday, but then like when you need the ball, you could just do it like what the other teams do. They'll dribble, have the point guard or have the lead guard dribble the ball to up the court. You go down, you run down on the perimeter, and then you pop up at the top of the key, get the ball, and then boom, and then you could, and then. You have the middle of the floor. You could do anything you want to do. If it's all right, we're gonna run a pick and roll or something like that. You run and get the ball, and then it comes to the pick for you. If it's we're gonna clear it out, let you do your thing. We clear it out, but you have the ball at the top of the key with 20 15 seconds on the clock. To do what you got to do. If you want to run if you still want the ball in your hands. Otherwise, you can set a pick, you can roll. If you set a pick and you roll the basket, you're going to draw so much attention. I mean, you got guys, Holiday and DiVincenzo, these guys can make plays for you on the perimeter, off pick and rolls. But if you want the ball in your hands, you can go get the ball in your hands. And it's that growth in this game, like that from that mental aspect. That's what's next, and something too of Giannis sometimes, which I don't like, and I don't know if this is him or his coaches, is like when the other team's star player on the perimeter gets going, he does not guard them. Last year when Jimmy Butler was feasting, he didn't want to guard Jimmy Butler, and I'm like, no, you got to take the best player on the perimeter and shut him down. And what really bothers me with that is you won Defensive Player of the Year, and you not even taking on a challenge of stopping their team's best player when they need you in the clutch. You have all the physical tangibles. I think the other day when they played Brooklyn, I know somebody was like, well, that's her. Jay Williams was like, well, how come Giannis isn't guarding Kevin Durant? And your excuse can't be, well, coach told me, coach didn't No, you're the leader. You're the unequivocal leader. You're the unequivocal alpha.
Yeah.
You take it upon you. Say no, no, Middleton. I got this guy. I got this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're like you said, if you're the defensive player of the year, and you could let it fall back on the coaching, and the coach could say, hey, you go do this, Middleton, you guard this guy. But I mean, if Jimmy Butler's eating Chris Middleton alive, you got to do something to switch it up. It's not just going to be, well, I hope Jimmy Butler just goes cold here soon. You can't hope. You got to switch things up.
Yeah.
We did have a comment come in, and I think this could be a
Christian Wood, most improved player.
Good talking point here.
I mean, if you look at, man, I wish I could pull my article, but if you look at his numbers all across the board, I mean, yeah, why wouldn't he be? I mean, who else is really Jeremy Grant from Detroit? But
I personally, I think I love how Christian Wood's playing.
Most improved.
I don't know if you can say he's the most improved.
He's been improving every year, so that's why.
I think the guy that it's absolutely night and day is Julius Randle.
I've always thought Julius Randle was good. When the Lakers drafted him, I saw him in Kentucky.
Yep.
I think what Julius Randle has done, I think his scoring was always there. He was always a good scorer, but I think the playmaking, the assists, that's improved a lot. I think I think he catches the ball at the top of the key, so he's added that little aspect to his game, which is, I mean, obviously made a huge change. I think he's taking more threes now too. And so he's scoring a little bit more, but he's always been a pit bull, down low, southpaw. He just bully guys, but now he's learning how to, make plays at the top of the key for a big man. As far as passing, kind of reminds me of Joakim Noah with the Bulls. How he's passing. I mean, obviously Joakim's not the kind of scorer he is, but yeah, man, I keep going back to Wood, but yeah, I mean, but Wood's steadily increased. Like, I mean, if it's not Christian, I mean, it's not Julius. I mean, I haven't even really thought about
Grant as another great candidate.
Yeah. Only thing that's going to hurt Grant is probably that his record, like their choice is terrible. Like they're 4-14. And, I mean, so, I mean, you'll look at a team. I mean, but like if New York makes the playoffs, then Julius Randle will probably win that award. But if Houston sneaks in, maybe you look at a Christian Wood because I'm like, hey, I mean, obviously you want to look at other things, who's played more games and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I would even dig deeper and look at, all right, well, what were his stats when he played against like some of the top tier teams, and compare all those guys. Like, are you just padding your stats versus like the weak teams and then you're folding versus the strong teams, or are you consistently, playing at a higher level than normal?
Yeah, and like those are all aspects you're gonna have to look at. And I do agree with you. If either of those teams make the playoffs, which if the Knicks make the playoffs, that might send the whole state of New York into a riot. So
got some buddies I got a couple of buddies in New York, and they're always talking about the Knicks and whatnot. And I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, hey man, the Knicks are good. They should have drafted. Like I always say, they should have drafted Tyrese Halliburton that plays for Sacramento.
Yep.
I think we talked about this last week too. So I always bring it up, and I mean, there's no shade to Obi Toppin or anything, but the Knicks already had like 8 forwards. I'm like, you don't need another forward because he's not going to be able to develop. You got your point guard, your young point guard, your the future there. But I think they wanted quickly. They quickly was Thibodeau's guy, so that's why they probably took Obi Toppin. But if you go and redo that draft, you take somebody else there in that position. Because I mean, Obi can't really develop with like Julius Randle, playing out of his mind with Reggie Bullock and Taj and Kevin Knox and all the other myriad of forwards that they have there. So
yeah, I didn't understand that, why the Knicks took Toppin there. I would have gone, like you said, I would have gone with somebody else and found another playmaker because they had a lot of forwards.
Yeah,
it was just like, why are you drafting one to just throw into the mix unless you're planning, unless you really don't know how your season's going to go, or you're guessing and you're just saying, hey, we're just going to have like you said, a myriad of forwards and one of them is going to hit.
I think Tibbs maybe. I mean, I don't know if that was Tibbs' call because I know how Tibbs is like the general manager and he has GM duties as well. And I mean, Tibbs like he knows his guys, but I mean, if he won it quickly, so I'm guessing he had some say in that. But I mean, even at that position, you could take somebody else. And I'm wondering if Tibbs is doing the whole like, and me how I would draft. I heard this from a coworker a few years ago is take the best available player and then sign free agents to fill needs. So if you're the Knicks and at that position you thought Obi Toppin was the best available player, but you still had a need for a point guard, then that makes sense that you drafted Obi Toppin and then you signed Elfrid Payton to fill that need, and then you were able to get another best available player quickly at his spot. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what New York does. I'm sure they're gonna move some forwards. Kevin Knox might be the odd man out, and I actually think Kevin Knox, has not scratched his potential. I mean, he could be really good. I think he just needs more time, and he probably needs to go to another team. And I think too, playing in like some of these big cities like New York and Chicago and LA, I think that really affects some players like a lot more than people really think. And because I've seen players like thrive in big cities, but I've seen players go to big cities and be under the spotlight and just struggle, and you just wonder like, man, like why is this guy playing up to his potential? And I think it's just needs a new environment or a new atmosphere and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see how the Knicks kind of shake up the roster. I do like Mitchell Robinson a lot for the Knicks. They're big. I think he's like 22 years old. If he can continue to develop an offensive game, I think he could be a really nice piece. He's a mobile 7-footer. I think he could be better than Miles Turner in a year or so if he continues to grow his offensive game.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right when you say that and that's an aspect that we as fans often overlook because we just automatically assume that these guys, when they go to whichever city that they that they're going to play in, that they're just there to play. They're just there to play, and that's all they're going to do. We forget that they're also going to have a social life. They're going to have a nightlife. They're going to have that interaction with people in that city. Yeah. And cities like Chicago, like New York, like LA, like there is so much going on that it's got to be easier said than done to just think, oh, I'm just going there to play. I'm going to focus on basketball and that's it. There's so many other distractions. I mean, the story that came to my mind was Jahlil Okafor when he went to Philly. I thought he was going to be a great player, and I think he just kind of got caught up in being a young kid and being successful, and he kind of made some stupid mistakes, and then he went to a bar and with a fake ID and got in trouble for that. And it was just like, you're Jahlil Okafor. You are a very, very well-known public figure in Philadelphia. Why are you trying to pull this? And even more so there, I'm gonna throw this out there because I'm sure that everybody drinks at one point in their life before they're 21. Drinks underage, it's gonna happen. Now, whether some people's values uphold whether they make that decision or not, that's for them. That's their own life. That's their own decision. But I can imagine that somebody like Jahlil Okafor, if he really wanted to drink, could have just turned to security or somebody or his bodyguards or somebody that he knows and said, hey, go to the store or go get me this. This is what I would like. I mean, that's, in my mind, that's a lot, makes more sense to me than going to a bar and trying to get by with a fake ID.
It's tough. I'm a big fan of Jahlil Okafor too, hometown kid. And I thought when he was a rookie, that success, like he averaged like 17.5 points and 8 rebounds as a rookie. So you thought, okay, maybe a second year he can up that. But that was kind of along the time when the NBA was shifting from, traditional big man, more towards shooting because that was like 2014, 2015. That was with like Steph, Golden State really starting to
Yep.
show like, hey, we're shooters and whatnot. So and he kind of got, stuck behind Embiid and Nerlens Noel and all the other big men that Philly had at the time. And I mean, he's carving out a nice little role now. I think he's in Houston now. No, I think I can't remember where he's at now. I think he's he's in Detroit. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's in Detroit now, and I still think he could be an effective big man. I think that too. What I love about Okafor is he faced all that adversity. He got cut, team bounced around, and this and that. He used that adversity to kind of self-improve. He worked on his body, and he transformed his body. I think he lost a bunch of weight, got in really good shape, and and found himself back in the team and stuff like that. I think he's only going to continue to get, an opportunity to play, and he's only 25. He just turned 25. He's 95.
He's not.
No, so he's not young, and I mean he can be a good big on a team. And heck, I think the Bulls can use him now because I just read that Wendell Carter Jr. is out for like a month with the right quad contusions, and that was our center. So we're a little thin up front with just Markkanen and Daniel Gafford. And and Markkanen is not exactly the most, ironclad person himself. He gets knocked around too. So, I love to have, and I've always said I like, seeing Chicago players come home like him and Derrick Rose. So I love to have those two back, on the fold. And we could use.
Yeah, I would not be mad if Chicago grabbed Jahlil Okafor.
I guarantee if we had Derrick Rose, Denzel Valentine would probably play better too. We're just having another dynamic guard to play off of. I think Denzel will flourish. And I think Denzel's doing solid, but I think he can probably even play even better with a guy like Derrick Rose off the bench and a guy like Leo. Like I think he'd, play perfect with guys like that. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think when you're talking about Derrick Rose, that's a whole nother beast of a player because he's got a different playmaking ability than what Zach's playing with right now. He's got a different playmaking ability than Kobe White, and it's Derrick Rose is just built different.
Yeah,
and those players are just built different, and they interact with the way that they interact with their team and their team feeds off them. It's different, and that's what takes that team and makes it good to great. Speaking of players and playing different, let's talk about this will be our last topic of the day. Let's talk about what's up with LeBron. His antics for the last week.
We obviously me and you talked about this before the show. We didn't talk about the reasoning why. I don't know. Is he sticking his finger out at the NBA for starting back? We talked about the Bulls game when he ran on the bleacher or around on the thing, and okay, I was like, your momentum carried you there. You've done that. Heck, I've done that before when I ran on the stands. And but I've like what we said, I jumped down from there, and like the fact when he ran like all the way back ran back, I was like, okay, man, that's kind of excessive. And it's like, man, like I don't know what it is, like versus Chicago teams, he likes to do that because I remember he was dancing at the free throw line like in 2009, and him Joakim Noah said something to him like, man, why are you dancing? Like why are you joking around? You were playing a game, and he like took offense to that. And Joakim was on the bench, and he like tried to walk over to the Chicago bench like he was gonna do something, but like that thing he did versus the Bulls recently. I guess yesterday or the game versus Philly, he kind of like nudged Embiid when he went for a dunk, and they were saying that was a flagrant. I didn't think that was really malicious. I really just think that was that was a push, maybe because it's LeBron and he's strong. But I'm not sure like why this is. I'm not sure if he's trying to galvanize his team, and maybe he's just bored because these are like the sticky, icky days of the NBA. It's just like then we just played like 3 months ago, and I should still be like resting. The season should have started like 10 days ago, or for MLK week instead of starting like for Christmas. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just like a giant middle finger, or not a giant. Maybe it's like a indirect middle finger to the league or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Like you said, like you go up there to stop your momentum because if you don't, you're going to run into it and possibly hurt yourself. But then to run across, you're not only one risking yourself to get hurt, but two, you're kind of making a fool of yourself, the league, and it's kind of childish. It's childish, and it's not something that you do in a basketball game. And then to run back, and it's just like, what? I just don't know what he's doing. And then the foul yesterday against Embiid, Embiid wanted it to be way worse than it was. I think Embiid wanted it to be a flagrant too. And like you said, there was no maliciousness to it. It was nice. There was a little shove because he needed to foul him, because you can't just give up the basket to him like that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. But LeBron just used a little bit more force than he had intended, because I don't know if you saw it, but the Embiid went up and he just kind of pushed a little bit, and his arms went down right away. It didn't extend. It was just And Embiid, it was towards his lower half, so Embiid went back and fell and hit the deck hard. And so that's why I think Embiid wanted it to be a worse foul than it was. But I mean, and I think it would have possibly helped a little bit if LeBron would have shown some emotion, like, shit, I didn't mean to shove him that hard, or I didn't mean for him to do that. But LeBron was just like, whatever, and just walked off. And it was like,
I think the biggest indicator of that too, as one of the reporters was saying this today, was none of Philadelphia's teammates really came over to help him because they probably knew he was flopping, because the way he fell bad, I was like, I think he kind of wanted to sell it in a sense to the referees. Hey, that wasn't a flagrant though, because he even went back and said, "Oh, LeBron should have been ejected for that if that had been me." I'm like, yeah, you're right, LeBron. I mean, I've seen guys get fouled way harder and pick up from 40, 50-year-old men than what LeBron did to you. And I mean, he sold it. Embiid flops a lot and sells it. Marcus Smart flops a lot. I mean, both those guys deserve Oscars. I mean, especially Marcus Smart. I mean, you could probably find a blooper reel of just all the flops Marcus Smart would do. He'll literally just throw his body back, he just no regard for his body, just throw it back like he got hit by a semi or something like that. And I think Embiid kind of embellished it as well too. And so I'm not really, looking too much into that too. I mean, you obviously you don't even see LeBron getting fouled or fined or anything like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that flagrant was rescinded after a further review. I mean, I don't think it will be, but I would not be surprised if it was rescinded. I mean, I guess it's only a flagrant one. So, but I didn't think that was really that bad. I think that was LeBron trying to just stop him from actually putting the dunk down. LeBron probably didn't want to jump and try to challenge it, because he didn't probably want to get hit or something like that. I think he just thought, well, I'm already kind of out of position. Let me just stop the dunk, and whatnot.
And that's exactly what it was to me, and that's what it looked like, was that LeBron was just it was a light foul just to at least make him so that he would have to shoot free throws.
Mm-hmm.
And he just kind of hit him a little harder than he had anticipated, and Embiid hit the deck. Now, I will say, like you said, there was one of the Philly players, might have been Tobias Harris, that came over and tried to help him beat up. But the one Laker player I saw over there was Schroeder. And he went over and, was trying to check on him to make sure he was all right. And Embiid just kind of rolled over immediately and turned his back to him. It was just I understand being down like that and getting hurt and laying on the floor, and you don't want to the last person you want to see is the person that fouled you.
Yeah.
But then you don't want to see one of their teammates coming over and getting in your face either. But in the heat of the moment, I get it. But at the same time, it's I think that I like that Schroeder actually showed some care about the other team's player, making sure that he was all right, making sure that things were okay, and that whatever, he'll be fine.
Yeah,
but I don't think
Embiid's kind of a drama queen in that sense. I remember him and Westbrook having their back and forth, and Westbrook obviously, is obviously a very emotional player and whatnot. So I mean, and I'm not surprised all these guys Embiid gets into it with Marcus Smart. Gets into it with Westbrook and all, whatnot. All these guys play with a lot of emotions and passion which is good. So I won't really, look into that. I mean, it was a good win for Philly. They needed it, or it's a statement win for them, So I mean, so kudos to them for that. And LeBron, I think LeBron's maybe just trying to kind of galvanize his team. I mean, he just turned 36. He's, like, hey, these are kind of the sticky icky days. Let's keep building on what we have. And let's just I think he's maybe trying to light, fire under some of these guys. And I mean, the Lakers are kind of just like humming along. They're using the regular season as practice to kind of, it's helping them. They're getting their reps in, they're getting their familiarity in. I'm not gonna say the regular season is not important. I just don't really evaluate, these teams in the regular season as much. I know they're just using it to build their principles and their reps and stuff like that for the playoffs. I fully expect the Lakers to be in the playoffs. I fully expect, Philadelphia to make the playoffs. So, when they really get to the playoffs, that's when you'll see, like, the fruits of their labors of the regular season. So I think LeBron's just I think he's maybe trying to motivate his team too. Other antics he's done, the shot, remember the 3-point shot, then turning around and looking at your bench, the Steph Curry, that was, I mean, like, just all that, it's just like, and then the Cleveland game that was this week too. The GM or the guy, the assistant coach, I was clapping. I actually saw another clip of that from the top of the thing looking down, and I guess the coach and the coach or the assistant, LeBron missed that shot, and the assistant guy, but he was clapping really loud. And I'm just like thinking, I'm like, dude, like, it's the end of the third quarter. Like, why are you? I mean, he missed one shot, and it was like right like in LeBron's proximity. There's no fans or anything like that. So LeBron was like, you're kind of, celebrating a little, you're kind of for what? For me missing a shot at the end of the third quarter, like in a game where we said. So I think LeBron, I think he, wanted to send a message. I mean, I don't think. I mean, you can drop 60 points in the Cavs. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Excuse my language. It's Cleveland. Like, it's not gonna, affect anything. But yeah, just those little things like that. And I think the media too just hangs on everything that LeBron does. So he did that. Oh, LeBron, because I remember when he did that, the spin when he shot the 3 and he turned around, and they were talking about that for like a week. And I'm like, dude, Steph Curry does that all the time. Like, I mean, that's nothing. Like Curry, I mean, like Curry made that. Like, that's what they call Curry boogieing, or they say he's I mean, like, that's nothing. I mean, Swaggy P did that like 5 years ago, and he missed a shot, but he's turned around and shot it and walked up, did this, and the ball rolled out. And that's like when LeBron does it. It's like on the ESPN front, all of the front center, and it's all like, oh man, like, LeBron, why did you do that? Like, I'm like,
it's because LeBron is supposed to be the guy that makes all the shots. He's supposed to make one. He is the greatest player on earth right now, and he's supposed to make 100% of his shots. So when he misses something, it's a big deal. Just like when Steph Curry finally misses a ridiculous three ball that he fires up, and it's like, oh yeah, he missed. He's human. It's news to the world because the efforts that Steph Curry puts up, and LeBron for that matter, they are superhuman efforts, and it's a little ridiculous sometimes, and so I think it's a refresher to everybody else that, okay, these guys, they're not superhuman. They're just really, really good.
Exactly.
But all right, that's all the time we have for Points in the Paint tonight. Thank you for everybody that popped in and said hi and watched. I'm Andrew. Sam, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm Sam. And again, guys, you see our handles here below. Like I said, feel free to reach out to us via Twitter. Let us know what you want us to hear us talking about. We'll gladly touch on any NBA subjects. And what me and Andrew said, it's been kind of like, it's been really stagnant in the NBA. Not really much going on. Obviously the Super Bowl is getting ready to start for football. So once that's over, NBA might get a little bit more attention. College basketball, as it gets more towards March Madness, maybe that might get more, attention as well. But here in a couple of weeks or so, it's going to be just all NBA, and I guess it's really difficult with all these games getting canceled or postponed. So it's like it's just a lot. But besides the stuff that we're talking about, we'd love to hear from you guys. Just to know what you guys want us to talk about. And we'll gladly touch on any subjects that we can as it relates to the NBA. So I thank you guys for tapping in, and hope to see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll be live next Thursday right around 8:30. So we'll see you then.
All right, everybody. Have a good night.